This conference will now be recorded.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Here.
Lane Lewis,
Present.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes. Now, before we get started, I'd like to kind of put together some ground rules here that I think will simplify the progress of this meeting. And that is with each agenda item, we're going to have public comment first, and Rochelle and LaRue will field the public comments and direct the public comments for the rest of the board. And after we've heard any or all public comments, the board of directors will have 2 opportunities to respond. The first call will be any director's comment on any of the board agenda items as we go through them. And the second period will be closing comments on that agenda item from the board. So the directors will have 2 opportunities, and they'll be called upon individually. And at the end of the agenda item, we will have closing comments, if any, from any of the board members before we move on. So that way, I think that everybody will have an opportunity to participate on any board agenda items, and hopefully we won't be talking above each other or on top of each other. So if everybody is clear on this, I'll have Blake see how I see him here on my screen. Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah, let's give this a try. This could be interesting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Great job, Blake. Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public present, LaRue or Rochelle, to want to be heard?
I have not received any email notifications at comment@ttsa.net. Because of the number of people participating, all callers are muted. So if you have a comment to make, please either go to the chat function on the GoToMeeting app and say that you would like to make a comment, or email comment@ttsa.net. But at this moment, I have no one for public comment at all. I don't know if you want 30 seconds or just proceed.
Okay, we'll wait 30 seconds before we move on.
All righty. And I will refresh my email just in case. No comments.
Okay, let's move on to item 3, professional achievements. Vicki.
Good morning, President Cox and Director. Vicki Lefrano, Human Resources Director. And I just wanted to present some achievements, awards, and anniversaries. The first one will be for an achievement for Ryan Schultz. He has received his electrical instrumentation grade 4 certification, which is an over certification. So Ryan, if you're out there listening, congratulations, good job. Some safety suggestion awards. Again, we have Ryan Schultz for installing guardrails on top of the filtration tank in AWT for fall protection and remove ladder cage that blocks the fuel tank ladder. We have Anthony Salinas install light cover form fixtures in the welding shop for protection. And Keith Kabate with 4 suggestions. First one, install tow board on fuel tank in AWP. Second is install a toilet cover dispenser in building 24 restroom. Third, install boilers in front of the natural gas piping in the back of building 70 to prevent damage. And number 4, install machine guarding for the emergency hose reel belt on VHCT 24. So again, good job to all of you if you're listening. And then last but not least, we have a 5-year anniversary, and that would be Matt Nitz. He's an operator, operator 3, and he just achieved 5 years at TTSA in March. So Matt, if you're listening, great job and congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much, Vicki, and thank you for all those people's due diligence in making TTSA a safer workplace. And thank you to Matt for being with us for 5 years.
Hey, Dale,
Yes.
just a point of, order here. I'm wondering if we could just ask everybody to hit their mute, the little microphone thing. Everybody just turn their own off, except you. And since you're directing the meeting, as people come on, they unmute themselves, but there's definitely some feedback making it a little hard to read. And I think that hopefully will help with the audio portion of the meeting. So I recommend everybody mute their audio unless they're actually speaking. And I'm going to do so right now.
Dale, I got a suggestion too. And I don't know how it could work, but if we can just have I got 6, like you said, Blake, I got 6 people on the, I got you, I got Richard, and I got LaRue and Vicki. I mean, if I could just get the board of directors on here, it'd be nice to see our comments coming back, but doesn't seem to be able to do that.
Yeah, we don't have control of that unless you
Okay.
can change it to view everyone. And it might just be the limitations of having it on your iPad that restrict it to how many users you can see at one time.
Okay. If we could, that's great.
Bob jumped on, maybe he has an idea.
Elaine, can you, when you see the 6 people up on top of your screen, right, on your iPad?
6 pictures, yes.
You see a little right arrow key, like it's a scroll.
Right.
If you touch that, you should get the next 6 people. Are you getting that, or is that? You should be able to
It
swipe.
says leave meeting. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I'm hitting it and I'm not getting anything.
Okay, all right.
So, okay, whatever. It's fine.
Okay, as long as we all can hear each other, or at least can hear me, I think you're on the right track, Blake, by having everybody hit their mute button until they're ready to speak. And once again, after each agenda item is introduced and we have public comment, I will be calling on each and every director 2 times. Once for comment on the agenda item, and the second time will be closing comments on the agenda item. So with that being said, are we ready to continue?
I believe so. Real quick, Dale, I just want to reiterate all callers. If you are not logged in through the GoToMeeting app where we can see you and see your name, the callers are muted. And if you would like to make a public comment on any agenda item per the agenda and guidelines email, please email comment@ttsa.net to do so. Okay, that's it.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda items 1 through 3. If everybody has had a chance to review the minutes and the fund warrants and the financial statements, if everybody has found them in order, I'll ask for a comment from each director. What do you think, Blake?
No comments at this time.
Dan,
No comments, and I move approval.
Johnny,
No comment, and I'll second.
and Lane?
No comment.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3, along with a second. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes. Moving on to section 5 of the regular agenda. Appeal of the collection fees for APN number 092-100-004-000. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Good morning, everyone. This item is an appeal for connection fees for Mr. Spohr. He is an owner of a residential property who is also building an ADU on the property. And we assessed his ADU per ordinance number 2/2020 for the base fee plus $1.75 per square foot of the ADU. And his fees came out to $3,600. Mr. Spohr is disputing the way in which we are charging these connection fees. He believes that the ADU should be 47% of the main residence. Therefore, the base fee should be adjusted $705. I'm getting a lot of feedback right now, Dale. Can you maybe turn the volume down?
Okay, now here's my sprinkler system just kicked on. I'm gonna mute.
Okay. All right. Mr. Spohr did request that appeal. I know he had intended to participate today. I'm not sure what caller he is. I have not received any comment from him at the moment. We did run this through council, confirming our fees and in the manner in which we conducted our calculation. And also, since that time, Mr. Spohr has paid the fee for the $3,600, paying for his permit to begin construction, but he is still disputing that charge. Let's see, our recommendation is to uphold the assessed fee of $3,600. Is there a public comment?
LaRue, you have a comment?
No, I do not have comment other than Mr. Spohr did appeal to me. I did respond. It is in the packet. And the recommendation was stated by Rochelle. I recommend that the next step be to allow Mr. Spohr to provide feedback and comment.
Okay, I do see he is on the line. Let me go ahead and unmute him. Just a moment, please. So we have quite a few. Here we go. Mr. Spohr, if you would like to make comment, I don't have you muted. You must have muted yourself. If you would like to unmute and make a comment, now is the time to do so.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Great, thank you. I appreciate this. I'll make this short since I've also submitted a letter and had a lot of correspondence with you folks. There are basically just what I wanted to say. your basis for denying the reduced proportional fee on the base fee is that the base fee is an impact fee, and where you don't really define this as an impact fee anywhere in your documents. And then you also say that an impact fee is not doesn't have to be reduced, and I think there's some different language in the law itself that would dispute that. That the impact fee, I can find areas where I can read that the impact fee does have to be reduced proportionally. And the third point I would like to make is that the law SB 13 requires that you submit your fees to the California Department of Housing and Urban Development for approval within 60 days and the law took effect on January 1st. And as far as I know, you have not done that, so you are in violation of the law. If you had submitted the fees to them and received their approval, then this whole thing would be moot, and then we could just move on. But until you submit your fees and receive their approval for their fees, I think that we should consider this case open. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
LaRue, do you want to respond? Rochelle, the same?
Yes, I can respond. Mr. Spores, what he had reiterated was in his letter. I did address that. He questioned the definition of impact fee. The impact fee is not equivalent to a connection fee. We are entitled to apply a connection fee. There is another reference to the ratio and percentage and how we apply the base fee of $1,500 as he had requested due to, excuse me, I'm going through the pages here. Due to the main residence, the ADU only being 47% of the main residence, that $1,500 in his opinion should be adjusted $705. So we're looking at approximately $795 question. When he references a lot of the points in the law, there is another point that if you in front of you and read further, it would state that we as an agency do have the ability to charge for a connection fee, provided that his ADU meets certain requirements. Unfortunately, I don't have that law in front of me right now, but based on that, the provision, we are entitled to charge for that. I have no additional comments to add on that.
Rochelle, any comments?
I agree with LaRue. It's all in the correspondence back and forth addressing this item is all in the packet of information that we provided to you. Other than that, we stand with our decision and leave it to the board or to Mr. Shanahan, who also assisted us in this assessment, if he would like to make any comment.
Shanahan, any comments? Hearing none. Any comments from the board?
Dale, I've got nothing to add other than.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
It does not have their phone muted.
So it sounds like the bottom.
I didn't have my phone muted. I'll mute it now.
Okay. Sorry.
So it sounds like the bottom line on this issue is that we're charging connection fees consistent with our connection fee ordinance, that Mr. Spohr is suggesting that our connection fees are invalid because we haven't properly had them approved by the state. I think what we've heard from legal counsel and our general management staff is that state approval is not required, and therefore our connection fees are valid, and all we've done is apply our connection fee ordinance to this project the way we would apply it to any other project. Is that the case here?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
You're in concurrence with that, Dick? Okay. Okay, so
Okay,
I'm,
any comment from Northrop?
No comment. I mean, the thing is in place.
Okay, Lewis? Lane Lewis, any comments?
Oh, I'll make the motion that we deny the request based on our ordinance.
And Blake, any comments?
Just that, I appreciate Mr. Spore's, diligence that he went through to, request the reduction in rates. I see his logic, but I think that it doesn't apply in this case, and that the district has been proactive in its rate structure to comply with the law, and went above and beyond that to apply this sort of tiered rate to all structures to incentivize, and to some extent, the smaller units. And so, again, I appreciate, in reading through all the correspondence, the work he went through, and I appreciate staff's thoughtful responses. And but I concur with, in the end, staff's determination, and I will second Lane's motion to deny the appeal.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to deny Spore's request for alterations on his billing. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins? Dan Wilkins?
yes.
On Northrop?
Yes.
Blake Trisson?
Yes.
Lane Lewis?
Yes.
And President Cox?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving along to the next agenda item. Approval of the updated employee handbook. This is item 2. Everyone has had a chance to review this item. Each and every page, I know for sure. And Blake and I have went through this at the committee level in detail. Blake, do you have, as a committee member, any comments to be made?
Sure, Dale. The handbook obviously is an important document that dictates the expectations of the agency on its employees, and I recognize there were some major changes in this update. The one that obviously was the most contentious, and there's a lot of documentation in the packet regarding the proposed change in schedules, and that was brought to us back in February, I believe, with the draft, and the board, I think, supported trying to create flexibility in schedule arrangement. And it was unfortunate that, the process perhaps got derailed a little bit there. But in the end, it looks like we've got a schedule, hopefully that's flexible in meeting everybody's demands. And so in the end, I'm pleased with the document, and ready to hear further feedback, should there be any, or move forward with codifying this.
Okay, we need comments from the staff. Any comments from LaRue, Rochelle, or Mickey, or anyone else on the staff?
Dale, I have not received any comments as requested prior to the meeting. I have not seen any comments come through since we've started, nor has anyone submitted any requests to speak through chat. At this time, there is no public comment.
Dale, if I could just make a quick comment. This is Vicki Lufrano, Human Resources Administrator. And just to add on to what you and Blake stated already was that the employee handbook went through a pretty stringent review process, including a lot of input from the employees, which is included in this packet today. And of course, the detailed review that you and Blake also participated in. And of course, there are some significant changes which we have listed. And other than that, I guess I would ask from my perspective that we, unless there's more comments to be made, that we're asking for the employee handbook to be accepted and made effective immediately, with the updated work schedule being effective May 17th at 6:00 a.m. And of course, any affected sections.
Okay, I need some comments from the board. Dan Wilkins.
Thanks, Dale, and thanks to you and Blake for all the time you put in on this, as well as the staff. This is a significant item. I guess and I know there was a lot of coordination with staff at TTSA as this was being developed. I think I'm assuming that the lack of comment on this from staff is an indication that staff does not have significant concerns with this document. Do you think that's a fair assessment, LaRue or Dale or Blake or anyone else who was involved with preparing this?
I can speak on that. Since we amended the schedule provision in the handbook, we have not received any further comment from staff. They have been acknowledged and made aware that this is going to be approved at the upcoming meeting and encouraged to participate and provide feedback. So if we're not receiving at this time to Rochelle, I would assume that they are correct and they are satisfied with the handbook.
Thank you.
Rochelle,
I have
any comment?
Director Lane Lewis, I'd just like to say that I want to compliment staff, the whole process, in accommodating everybody's scheduled needs. That was truly exemplary on a part of the staff and in the process. I'm looking at this thing that we need to. This is the 27-year-old document. We should be reviewing these documents at least every 5 years, because obviously the changes have taken place since I last signed this thing in 1993. It's been a little too long, but if we could put that for review in every 5 years, that would be good.
Okay, John Northrup, any comment?
Yes. On those last two motions under Robert's Rules of Order, after we voted affirmatively, you never said motion has passed. And does that have to be said for the record or not?
Go ahead, LaRue or Rochelle, any comment?
I don't believe so, but I can make sure to do so moving forward. And before we go through and vote on this item, we do have a public comment that just came up in the chat, actually two. So I will go ahead and I'll read them unless they would like to speak themselves. I'll go ahead and if the first comment is from Paul Schaus. Paul, if you would like to unmute your and speak.
we waiting for Paul's comment?
Yes. Oh, he doesn't have a microphone connected. He doesn't. So I'll go ahead and read his comment for you. It says, I would just like to thank, this is Paul Schaus, he's the INE supervisor. And he said, I would just like to thank everyone for their hard work and diligence on the employee handbook. Thank you for accommodating so much of the combined staff feedback into the handbook. And then also Dawn Davis, accounting tech. She said that I agree with Paul, very much appreciated. And that's all I have.
Okay, with that being said, any directors at this time, any closing comments? Wilkins?
No closing comments, and I'd move to approve this item.
Okay, Northrop, any closing comments?
No, I would second that motion. I still have a question that hasn't been answered about those last two motions that we voted on. Are you supposed to say that those motions are passed the vote or not?
John, I think we have a roll call and that should suffice. Do you want to provide input on that, Dick Shanahan?
Okay, to chime in on this, I think roll call is sufficient. However, I think that the board secretary should chime in at the end, stating that the motion has passed verbally for the record.
Confirmed, and will do moving forward, beginning with the approval of the handbook.
Okay, Lewis, any closing comments?
No, other than I commend staff for listening to all the employees' concerns, making everything work for everybody. That's what we're all about as an agency. And as I say, we just need to do a 5-year update on these instead of going 27 years.
Okay, Blake, any closing comments?
Yeah, first of all, Dale, I think Lane, you're confusing the EER with the handbook. The handbook was updated, I think, 5 years ago, or 2015, not 1993. But I agree with your principle, which is, keep these things current. So that's good. And I do commend Vicky. It's a big haul to rework it, a major rework like it was done. And I guess, again, through conflict, you end up, conflict's critical to organizations. And I just, I think it was good. This one had some conflict. I encourage folks not to take stuff personally, but to, it's okay to have opposing views. Don't take it personally. And that's how you end up in the end with the best product. And so in the end, I think we ended up with a good product, and that meets everybody's needs. And I am ready to take action on this item.
Okay, with that being said, one final comment from me to the rest of the board members. Upon going into this, Blake and I had a list that Rochelle had combined over the years that she has been in her position with flags within the old handbook of possible stumbling blocks that we needed to address or correct. And Vicky had the same type of situation where she had stumbling blocks and items that she had highlighted that we should review at the committee level. All of those items and highlights have been reviewed, and I think that the necessary changes have been entered into the new document. And we do have a motion on the floor with a second. to accept this document as presented. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Cox.
Yes. Next
Motion
item is the discussion and action on Resolution 2-2020, establishing rules and regulations for the administration of employer-employee relations. Go ahead, LaRue and Rochelle.
I will defer the item to Vicky.
I concur. And just a reminder, please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. We're getting some feedback on the line again, including directors. Thank you.
Good morning again, Vicki Lufrano, Human Resources Administrator. On the EER item, the last update was done in June of 1993, and we have now the rules that we have within Resolution 4-93 have become outdated per the MMBA. So we are bringing this forth to update it at this time. We have updated the employee groupings, and we have also updated the actual EER document. Online with us, we have Mana Radulovic from Wiley Price Radulovic, and we, as the board heard this item back at the February meeting, the request was to go back and take a look at the 5 proposed groupings and reduce them. And so we have done so. So the 5 previously proposed groupings have now been reduced to 3, which is the general unit, making up the, pretty much operators, maintenance mechanics, and the administrative staff. And then we have a professional technical unit, and then a supervisory managerial unit. And again, I would just state that Mana Radulovic is online to help answer any questions. Oh, and I'm sorry, what we would ask, the recommendation would be to approve Resolution 2-2020, establishing the rules and regulations for the administration of employer-employee relations. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mona. Any comments?
Mona, I think you're muted still.
Just a moment. Let me unmute all callers really quick because I'm not sure which caller Mana is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, for some reason, my computer audio is not working, so I have to use the phone. As you all noted, this resolution needed updating. The last time you all dealt with it was in 1993. And obviously you haven't had a union since then, which is one of the reasons why it wasn't updated. And also you've had some other changes as a result of your recent reclassification study that have been incorporated in here. For the most part, the rules are very similar to what you had before. However, they've been updated because the Myers-Malayath-Brown Act, the MMBA, which governs the labor relations there at the agency, changed a few years ago so that if a union comes in and shows via a petition or card check that it has majority support of the employees in the appropriate unit, that there need not be an election anymore. And so we've updated that to include that in here. There is still ways, if they do not have majority support, but have a 30% showing in the petition, and less than a majority support, then there is an election to see whether there's sufficient support. We've also updated the bargaining units in light of the changes in classifications that you have adopted. And as Vicki pointed out, originally we were proposing, I believe it was 5 units, because now's the time where you all get the opportunity to basically create what you think are the units that best suit the needs of the agency, what is reasonable. And the 5 units would be kind of the ideal because it does separate out units based upon pure conflict of interest, community of interest, and avoiding conflicts. But I understand that in an agency of your size, that can be a little unwieldy if you end up with all of those being unionized, which probably is not likely to happen, but could. So it's been condensed to 3 different units: the general unit, the professional technical unit, and finally the supervisory managerial unit. And a lot of thought was given into what those 3 units should be, again, looking at community of interest principles, and also an overriding concern of not having in the same unit supervisors who are supervising, rank and file employees, because that can create a conflict for those people. Who are they going to side with? Do they side with the employees they're in their unit, meaning their union, if they're all in there together, or are they going to, abide by their responsibilities as a supervisor and their responsibilities to the agency? So we've tried to be mindful of that and keep that separation throughout here. We've also have the separate professional technical unit because under the MMBA, the professionals can have a separate unit. And so we've created that here for the non-supervisory, non-managerial professionals. And it appeared to be desirable to do that now, also to avoid what I was saying in terms of the conflict of interest that might be created. It's specifically, you've got a safety officer who's truly a professional. It did not appear to make sense in view of community of interest and conflicts of interest to have that sort of a position in with the general unit. So those are the kinds of things that we were looking at and coming up with these 3 different units. I don't know if any of you have questions or concerns you would like addressed.
Anyone wish to address Mona can do so at this time. Blake, any comments?
Yeah, I had a couple. I think moving from the 5 to the 3 bargaining units was a move in the right direction in terms of trying to balance the communities of interest and also a reasonable number of bargaining units for the organization to be dealing with should they seek unionization. I guess I had one question in the way that the units currently are divided up with the supervisory group being lumped with the managerial unit and the professionals being a standalone unit. And I'm not an expert in this, Mona, so maybe you can help, but is that normal? Or to me, it seemed like perhaps, in an effort to try and keep perhaps the number of units reasonable, that the supervisory would be lumped with the professional technical and the managerial unit would still be a standalone one. And I know there was a clause, I was just looking for it, that says professional technical staff can be independently represented if they want, but it doesn't say that you, I don't think, have to set it up that way. So I don't know how that would work, and if that's a possible small tweak we could do in these units. And I don't know what the other board members or staff thinks about that. So again, my comment was, would it make more sense to have bargaining unit 2 be a supervisory / professional unit, and unit 3 just be managerial by itself?
I would not recommend that change because of the conflict of interest considerations that I just mentioned. So in your professional unit there are lower level positions that are being supervised by supervisors. And just as a practical matter, with those conflicts that I mentioned, I would not put the supervisors in with that same unit. You could do it, but to me, it would not be, I would not recommend it. Ideally, as I mentioned previously, and again, it has to do with how many units you want. I would suggest a completely separate supervisory unit and then a completely separate managerial unit, because that also separates out, in terms of community of interests and dealing with the conflict concerns. But in terms of minimizing the units, this seemed to be the best workable division if you wanted to have just 3 units.
Okay, can I have a comment from John Northrup?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. How do we know who all is in the unit? Do they have a choice in the line employees, as it were, or do they all have to be in the union? And also, what are the benefits?
So this is Dan. This has nothing to do with being in a union or not. This just identifies groups of employees, and if any one of these groups wants to unionize, they can. If they choose not to, then they don't need to. What we should be establishing bargaining units based on is what we think makes the most sense for the organization, regardless of whether those bargaining units are represented by a union or not represented by a union in the future. So I don't think the topic of unionization belongs anywhere in this conversation.
I understand that. I was just, that was my question, which I guess has been answered.
Yeah, these are just the rules. These are the rules that are put in place so that if a union wants to come in and seek to organize a bargaining unit or more than one bargaining unit at the agency, you all have rules and procedures in place to avoid any sort of confusion. And also by having these rules, it gives you as the agency control as opposed to when you don't have the rules, then what happens is the rules that are developed by the California Public Employment Relations Board control over the matter. And it's just generally advisable for public agencies to have their own rules to apply to these sorts of situations. And again, it will not come into play for the most part unless you have employees seeking to organize or a union coming in and saying, we are seeking to organize this group and we have their support. And you're not at that stage yet, but it's a good idea to have these in place just to be prepared.
Thank you.
If I can chime in very quickly, Mona, and then I'll get to you, Lane. I was just wondering, Mona, when you talk about the conflict of interest, as far as these 3 bargaining units as they're set up, will any of the bargaining units have the same business agent to do negotiations? Okay, when you have negotiations, you have a representative from
it depends on how it is set up. If a professional union comes in and were to organize, usually they bring in the bargaining agent. If you have an employee organization that is set up, those generally aren't run by a professional union, and that can lead to an employee possibly being designated as a bargaining agent, or sometimes employee organizations hire an outsider to come in and do the bargaining.
I see. So basically what you're saying is that at the time of negotiations, a third party can come in and represent either one of these three groups.
I just want to clarify because I'm not sure that we're on the same page. So at this point, you're setting up these three groups. If a union wants to come in and organize, they could come in and try to say, we want to represent the general unit. We believe we have enough support for that. Or they could come in and say, we want to represent the general unit, and we want to represent the professional unit, and we want to represent the supervisory managerial unit. But they would have to show support in each of those particular groups in order to do that. And only then would you be in a bargaining situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. You know, in my experience, bargaining with, let's say, Local 39, which is who we bargain with at Squaw Valley, we have a business agent that represents both our groups. And I was just wondering and wanting to make sure that there is a possibility that the same agent or bargaining group can represent all three classifications.
It's really up to the union and the employees in terms of whether they have sufficient support.
Okay. Lane Lewis, any questions?
I just, from listening to you, Mona, I like the going from 5 to 3 bargaining units. It's very defensible and it makes sense. I just want to say that if we do have organizational changes down the road, that we make those changes in so the employee knows exactly which unit that they are in. If because TTSA is a dynamic organization and things do change, and we always need to let the employees know exactly where they sit as far as bargaining unit, not when a conflict arises. That's my comment.
Yes, I agree. And within the rules, there are ways for that to happen when positions are changed, retitled, or you have a new position created, that your general manager would be making that designation at that point in time. And you can also, at that point in time, if you wish, revise the rules to reflect those.
Thank you.
Okay, we've thoroughly discussed this, and before we move for adoption of
Dale.
Resolution 2-2020, are there any final comments from the staff? Seeing none and hearing none.
This is Dan.
Any final comments
Hey,
from
Dale.
the board?
Hey, Dale, can you guys hear me?
Okay, Rochelle LaRue, do you have comments?
Dale I'm sorry, Dan has a comment. I can hear him. I'm not sure if you can, but Dan does have a comment. And Lane,
final comment, Dan Wilkins.
Lane, can you mute your phone, please? We're getting feedback on your side. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. On the going from 5 to 3, I think is a good step. I had a question for Mana related to how much of a problem is it if you end up with a supervisor and an employee that end up in the same bargaining unit, because that does happen sometimes. I understand that in the ideal world, everyone is fully separated in terms of bargaining units, but I also know that there's a lot of organizations that are very much larger than ours that have either the same or fewer bargaining units. And I also know that there's a lot of organizations that do have that overlap. So I'm trying to understand, how is that overlap a detriment to TTSA as compared to if there is some kind of an employee complaint within a bargaining unit, and then that's being resolved. I guess explain to me why it's a problem if you have an employee and that employee's supervisor that happen to be in the same bargaining unit, and why that's a problem specifically from TTSA's perspective.
Right. Your prior rules had this division also, and I recognize that some agencies did not have the ability to do that once upon a time because they probably had unions in place and they kind of evolved and they didn't make this distinction. But it is an important one that is desirable for agencies to the extent that they can make it. And as I said, you all are in the driver's seat here because you don't have any unions there. You have a clean slate, so this is your time to set this up in the way that's the best for the organization. So what happened, it could rear itself in many ways. When you've got supervisors in the same bargaining unit as your rank and file employees, it may not rear its ugly head, but it can, and I've been in situations where it has. So for instance, let's say you're in a disciplinary situation or a grievance, and you've got a grievance procedure under your labor agreement, and maybe or maybe not you have some sort of arbitration provision or a hearing officer that's going to resolve the dispute. Sometimes, it's unfortunate, but sometimes when the supervisor is in the same union and bargaining unit as the rank and file employee, suddenly their loyalties, when they're there at that hearing, they may be, watering down their testimony, even though perhaps this employee did something wrong. They're going to maybe water down their testimony a little bit to favor the employee and or the union, or they're going to change their testimony. Let's say you have a dispute about a particular operation that's grievable, or a particular provision in your handbook or your labor agreement that's grievable. Even though they may have taken one position with you all in terms of how you should proceed, again, when they're there testifying, it's hard for them to testify against their union. It might be hard to testify against their coworker who's also in the union. And it's just, you don't want to put them in that position. And it's also not good for the agency. I don't know if that explains it well enough, but there are a lot of horror stories like that I would prefer to avoid for your organization.
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've seen it work fine in organizations too. And, I think anytime there's disciplinary action that is occurring, it's always uncomfortable. And I'm not sure that dynamic changes much because of the presence of some kind of an employee organization or a union that's representing a group that's in a common interest. So I think I've heard your recommendation. I think I have personally I have less concern with that. With that said, I'm prepared to support the item that's in front of us. The other comment I wanted to make is I happen to work in an organization that has bargaining units that are established, and the employees in the organization I work for have chosen not to unionize. What they have done, though, is they've formed employee associations. So they've organized rather than hiring a union and paying union dues, what they've done is they've organized within themselves. Some of them have chosen to establish a modest due structure, and they'll pool money, and sometimes they'll bring in a professional negotiator to interface with management on labor negotiations. Occasionally, if there's a disciplinary action, they may use that pool of funds to help represent an employee. But it's another way that these bargaining units come into play. One is it establishes the boundaries of what could be a unionized entity. Should employees choose not to unionize, it also establishes the community of interest for folks who may want to organize in a less formal way, and but still create a point of contact for management on bargaining and labor negotiation type issues. And there's a lot of value there. So I think
Correct. So these rules apply to both.
Getting our labor units established and clarified is an important step for us. Can you guys still hear
Yes.
me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear, Dan. Is that your final comments?
So am I coming in to do payroll
Dan?
So, okay, I'm back now, or I'm hearing you again.
Any final
I'm not sure if that was the internet on
Wilkins?
my end or if it was with the meeting as a whole that just kind of broke down.
Any
Can
final
you guys hear me?
comments, Wilkins?
Yeah, we heard you. I don't know if you can hear us, but you've been clear the whole time for me.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Dan?
Okay.
Okay, final comments, Blake?
Yeah, I'm back to seeing everyone now.
Okay. Yeah, there was no interruption on our end. And Dale is asking for a final comment.
Okay.
Dan, were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
I believe so.
Okay. I guess I'm going to come back to this again. So I guess, Mona, I hear Dan's comments that, having chains of command in the same bargaining unit isn't necessarily the end of the world. It still gets dealt with. And so Mona, when I had asked her previously about, juggling these units around a little bit, came back with a recommendation, like in her mind, splitting up the supervisory and managerial units would be her recommendation. I just wonder how strong of a recommendation that is. So that's one question. The second one is, I was just looking through all the different positions and I didn't see Vicky's position anywhere in any of the bargaining units. And I don't know whether that's because HR somehow cannot be represented because they deal with confidential stuff. I'm just curious about that.
Okay. So essentially the two positions that are deemed confidential in your organization under these rules are Vicky's position, your HR manager position, and your general manager, because they will be very closely working on they would be closely working on any sort of labor relations matter. Technically, under the MMBA, they also could be represented by a union or an employee organization. It's just highly unusual. I haven't seen that happen in any organization that I've worked with.
And then the other one was, you made a statement that you would have recommended splitting the supervisory and managerial units up. I'm just looking for the the strength of that recommendation. Is that just it would be slightly better, or is that a strong recommendation?
Well, as I mentioned, if I were setting it up in an ideal world, I would have the different bargaining units And so I do think in some ways it would be helpful to have the supervisory separate from the managers, just because, again, it's a little bit of a less of a concern, but you still have in the same unit managers who are overseeing supervisors, and also there's some supervisors in here that are overseeing lower level supervisors. But I don't feel as strongly about it, and I understand your interest in not having, let's say, 4 separate bargaining units rather than 3.
Thank you. That's it for me, Dale.
Okay, Northrop, closing.
No problem.
Lewis, closing.
You're muted. Lane.
Yeah, just comment on if we do have organizational changes, we make those changes at the time so the employee knows which bargaining unit they're in. Very important. Thank you.
Okay, we've had thorough discussion. Any closing comments? Go ahead, LaRue.
Yeah, I asked that we give enough time for staff to provide comment. I think when we asked, I don't know if we gave enough time due to the delay of the emails to open it back up to staff. So my request is that we bring it to them one more time and give them ample opportunity to provide comment. Nothing else, sir.
Okay, Rochelle, any final comments?
I have no comment, and I have updated my email. I have not received any requests, nor at this time have I received any chat comments on the GoToMeeting. Like LaRue said, I don't know if you want to give them some additional time to submit anything, but at this point, I have nothing to add.
Okay, this item has been online and being discussed for about a half an hour now, or maybe a little more. I think it's adequate time for anybody with any concerns to make their views heard. At this time, I'd like to sit back and go ahead and move forward and ratify the resolution 2-2020. We need a motion on the floor, and we had a second, correct? The motion was Wilkins. The second was Tisson. Is that correct?
I didn't make the motion, but I'm happy to.
Okay, I thought you did. I'm sorry, Dan.
And I will second.
And so we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2-2020. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes.
And motion is approved for approval of resolution 2-2020.
Okay, moving on the agenda to item 4. Approval of the updated laboratory directors and chief operators classification descriptions. Go ahead, LaRue.
Dale, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Approval. I got an email for a comment.
Let's hear it.
It doesn't affect anything. Let's see here. This is Paul Schaus again, sending a comment for item agenda 3, the resolution 2-2020. He states that as a supervisor at different agencies, I have personally had experience in this area and have found that creating separation between supervision and general staff can be crucial in avoiding conflicts. There are often times when general staff disagree with management. It is critical, in my opinion, for supervision to support management. I would ask that supervision remain separated from general staff. Paul Schaus.
Okay,
That's it.
we've heard all comments and we've had action from the board. Let's move on to the number 4, approval of the updated lab director and operators classifications. Go ahead, LaRue.
I will defer the discussion to Vicky, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Good deal. Okay, so as we're all aware, we went through the comp and class study, and our new classification descriptions became effective January 1st, 2020. As of keeping all classification descriptions updated, we are putting through the request for two descriptions to be updated, which is the laboratory director and chief plant operator. For the lab director, we are adding language to clarify that the laboratory director will provide training to some operations staff so they can run certain laboratory samples in the absence of laboratory staff. And additionally, the laboratory director will supervise some of those operations staff while they perform those laboratory tests. Second, the chief plant operator changes the FLSA status to exempt and adds language that the position may be required to work outside of regular business hours. And I would just ask that the board approves the updated job descriptions for the laboratory director and the chief plant operator. Thanks, Dale.
Okay, any comments, LaRue?
I have nothing to add, sir.
Rochelle, any comments?
No, sir, I have not received any comment from the public or staff on this item that I need to present.
Go ahead, Wilkins.
No comments.
Northrup.
No comment. I have a question though.
Lewis.
Do we have to vote to remove the 493 rules, as it were?
No, they are superseded by the new 2020.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lewis.
No comment.
Blake.
They look like good changes to the classifications, no comments.
Okay, so are there any comments from anyone in regards to moving this classification description forward? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the updated laboratory director and chief plant operator classification. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Lewis.
I'll
Come
second.
on.
John Northrup for
Seconded by Northrup. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Trisson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes.
Motion approved for the approval of update of classification for the lab director and chief plant operator.
How we doing here, you guys? Are we getting through this in an orderly fashion?
I think we're doing great.
Okay, let's move on to approval of the agency investment policy. Go ahead, LaRue.
I'll defer the discussion point to Rochelle. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rochelle.
Okay, this is approval for the updated agency investment policy. Lane, can you mute your line again for me, please? Thank you. This is identical to the investment policy that was approved last year. It's the standard template. We are just doing an update to that investment policy on an annual basis so that if there are any changes in the law that we can do that. At this time, we don't intend to make any changes to our investments or investments or any other financial decisions until the completion of the master sewer plan Does anyone have any comments? Other than that, we recommend to approve the agency investment policy.
I'll
Any
move
public?
approval. I'll move. Oh.
Any public comment?
None. I have not received any public comment on this item.
Okay, Wilkins, any comment?
No, thank you.
Northrup, any comment?
No, and I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Lewis
No comment.
and Blake.
Just one comment. It looks like a good investment policy, and I know it's probably already outlined in our standard reporting, but currently, are we using any of those 8 options for the majority of our funds outside of LAIF? Are we using, I guess I should ask, be more specific. Are we invested, do we have any money invested in Placer County or CalTrust?
We do not.
Okay.
All our money is invested in only LAIF.
Okay, thank you.
Checking. Sure.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second.
Yes. And
Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes.
Motion is approved for the agency investment policy.
Thank you, Rochelle. Approval to purchase portable plant air compressor. Go ahead, Richard.
Morning, President Cox and fellow board members. Richard Palente, Maintenance Manager. Before the board for approval is a purchase of a new diesel-powered air compressor to replace our current 20-year-old gasoline-powered compressor. This one will provide more efficiency, replace a very aged unit, and is under the horsepower limit for AQMD permitting, so it makes it easier to maintain. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Director Lewis.
I'll make the motion for approval. It meets the budgeted amount. It's good.
Okay, Director Wilkins.
No comments.
Director Northrup.
No comment, and I'll second the motion.
And what about you, Blake?
No comments. Good job, Richard.
With that being said, I need a motion. We have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the purchase of the portable plant air compressor. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and President Dale Cox.
Yes.
Motion is approved for purchase of the portable plant air compressor. Okay, we move.
Okay, let's have the management report. What's up there, Jay?
Morning, everybody. Directors, this is Jay Parker, Engineering Manager. Just wanted to summarize my reports for February and March. They're pretty similar. We've been working on the same projects through those 2 months. Digital scanning of sewer lines, preparing for this this May. Headworks improvements project. We've got Jacobs continue our designs, and we continue to review those. The master sewer plan is ongoing from Corollo engineers. We've reviewed a couple deliverables since then. That's scheduled for August. The 2020 plant painting project, that's getting off the ground next week, next Monday. We are continuing with our construction projects. We've got the court and wall additions project, which will be going to, which is out to bid right now. And admin building remodel, we're in design. It's an in-house design that we're currently busy with. And then we're just starting design or planning for equipment vehicle warehouse. Any questions?
Any questions for Jay?
I do have a question. Jay, with regards, are we finished with the roofing project?
No, we're not. So we got a late start. Our contractor got a late start last fall and was able to only finish one of the most critical facility. So he's going to be picking up in May again. I believe it's around May 1 that he's going to anticipating starting.
When do you anticipate completion? And do we have any other equipment that could be? I mean, our equipment's been running in good order, but during the whole process with the leaky roofs and everything, we had issues there. Are all those taken care of?
Yeah, so the
door open.
equipment, those issues have been taken.
I didn't know. Thank you.
The anticipated end date for the roofer job is July, end of July.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Seeing none, hearing none. Thanks, Jay.
Yep, thank
you. What about operations, Richard?
Good morning, President Cox. This is Michael, Operations.
Michael.
Operations Manager. So I'll just summarize the last couple of months since we missed last month's board meeting also. Working with engineering for painting project, our annual biosolids reports. All plant waste discharge requirements were met for both months. We provided a tour for Squaw Valley Public Service Board of Directors and staff. This last month, we sent out solicitation of bids for bulk chemicals for the plant, and centrifuge replacement, replaced the drive on one of the centrifuges as it failed. And we're going through culture and core value training. As you can see, both months we met discharge requirements. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Go ahead, Blake.
Hey, Mike, it's Blake Treson. Question for you, and maybe it's partly Jay. TSD has been hit up throughout this whole COVID crisis with questions from the town and other public agencies trying to quantify, how many folks have taken refuge up here, concerns over, the level of service that would be needed. TSD, we looked at the flows and made some analysis of, potential increase in occupancy or decrease in some cases over the weekends in occupancy. I'm just wondering whether you and or maybe Jay have looked at it from a more larger regional perspective at TTSA, and not only from a flow perspective, but also from a loading perspective to get some sense of, how, the population up here has changed with the COVID crisis, and whether we are seeing any kind of significant import of folks from the Bay Area, use of the second homes and so on.
Yeah, so the first couple of weeks, it seemed like the flows were very flat, even on the weekends when we would expect a normal uptick in flows, and which the uptick in flows also corresponds with an uptick in loading on a normal weekend when you have the skiers and people coming up. And for the first couple of weeks, we did not see any of that. It was a very flat kind of flow coming through the plant and loading throughout the 7 days each week. And then for Easter weekend, we did see not a significant, but a definite increase in flow and loading over the 3-day holiday. So it did seem like maybe during that 3-day holiday, we had a increase in people up in the area. again, it wasn't significant what we normally see on a weekend, but it was more than we had seen the 2 weekends before. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds consistent with what we've seen just from a flow perspective. I was just curious if the loading told a different story. We were trying to parse out the increased flows because we're seeing snow melting happening and trying to decide whether those increased flows are occupancy based or are just simply some I&I from higher groundwater levels with the snow melting. And we don't have the ability to, we don't test for loading, so we don't know, but it looked like it was more I&I and less occupancy. And so I think it sounded like you had similar findings.
Yeah, we'll run some more numbers on the loadings themselves to get a little bit better idea, and I can report that next month, what we found. But just from what we've seen, it seems like the concentrations are staying about the same, and the flow went up, so I would say there was an increase. But we can definitely run some numbers and bring something back to the board next month if you'd like. So we can put that into record, kind of what we saw.
I'd be curious. I just didn't know whether you guys had been requested for any of your data to, from the hospital or from the town or the county to try and assess changes in occupancy up here throughout this thing. Something that might come your way, although hopefully we're kind of getting over the hump.
At this time, we have not been approached by anybody else for any of that information.
Okay. Thanks. No other questions?
I got a question for Michael. How involved, being the plan manager, how involved are you and how much time as far as with Carrillo, as far as organizational issues with regards to their report?
Can you state that again, please?
Okay, how involved have you been being plant manager as far as with Carrillo and the report that we'll be getting from them with regards to the organization?
As plant manager, I've been involved the same amount as the other managers for input and that Carrillo for.
Hey, just a request. I think there's someone out there that needs to mute. There's a lot of feedback coming over the line.
Thank you, Dan.
Did that answer? Are you looking for more of a? It's been off and on input for some time now, as far as when they have questions on how the plant runs, and it's really been kind of what we do now. And then I believe that they're going to be taking that information and putting it together in a packet for us.
Well, I'm just saying, you're the plant manager, and the involvement that I look at you probably being the most involved as far as the plant goes with regards to when Carrillo's asking questions as far as operations and stuff like that, and efficiencies within the plant, how we can do things better. Hopefully, I look to you as the main guy, basically. So.
Yes, we definitely had input, and we're working with Carrillo whenever they have a request for information. We've been providing it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
What's up, Richard?
Morning again. So I'll summarize the last 2 months as well. We've spent a lot of time over the last 2 months working on Digester 31 for prepping for the coating project that's getting ready to kick off, as well as the headworks and the bar screen upgrade, working with engineering on that. We have had to adjust some of our work schedules due to the COVID-19 as far as doing CDL training and our surplus property auctioning due to the social distancing we need to maintain. As Michael mentioned, we lost the VFD on centrifuge number 2. Really want to call out the E&I staff. They were able to locate an updated unit, purchase and procure it and get it installed within a couple days and get that unit back up and running, which was an extremely quick turnaround. So I want to acknowledge their efforts. The other milestone that we've hit is we've gone live with our Lucity software for our fleet maintenance section. So it's given us the opportunity to start working on workflows and SOPs and working out those little bugs before we go live with all the main plant equipment. So far it's going really well and is already providing valuable data on cost and tracking. So that wraps up the last couple months for maintenance.
Any questions for Richard?
No.
I do have a question for Richard regarding the B&R blowers. I mean, it seems like we've been having more problems with those. I mean, they're not that old.
They don't seem that old, but they have a lot of run hours. They run continuous for the most part. We've seen a lot of issues after the heavy loading from the holidays. We've lost a few. We've been doing some experiments with another manufacturer. That one's proven out pretty well. And we're also trying a new blower from the current manufacturer that provides a different method for doing oil cooling. So we're putting that little project together to start install here within probably the next couple of days. All the materials have arrived in this last week. I just need to shuffle staff around a little bit due to the COVID staffing. But while they're not age-wise extremely old, they do see a lot of use, which ages them pretty quick. And they're pretty, they're in a pretty harsh environment. It's really hot and they're compressing air. So it takes its toll on the equipment. All of them that we've rebuilt over the last 3, we're finding the end plates are cracked, which signifies they're just hitting the end of their life already.
Okay, a lot of bearing work.
It's usually what happens is the bearings will lose a bearing and then the lobes will hit. But like I said, this case, the last 3 we've done, the actual end plates of the blower are cracked. So it's just the result of the heat that's generated by compressing the air. And then they're in sound enclosures, which kind of, they make the situation worse because all that heat sets right there on the blower.
Well, maybe with the, looking at it and how to, keeping all the blowers the same manufacturers is an issue too, as far as parts and everything. But if there is, when you do contact different manufacturers and explain what's been going on, if they have any solutions instead of for new parts or something that can be put in those so we don't have the same thing reoccurring.
Yeah, and that's what we've done. One manufacturer that we've worked with is Roots. They're an extremely large manufacturer with several years of experience. They recommended going with a slightly larger unit so it moves more air at the time, so it helps keep it cool. And then the existing manufacturer, Tut Hill, has their new unit utilizes a cooling coil in the oil reservoir, which is an improvement over the existing units. So the existing units, while they had that water cooling, it was never implemented during the original design and construction. So we're having to put in a small heat exchanger that has a fan and then run that cooling water through the oil reservoir. So those are the materials that I was mentioning that have just arrived this week. And that they've done an improved design on that, with the coil actually just being a separate coil in the oil bath instead of having multiple seals and 2 sealed chambers that they're trying to keep sealed with the amount of heat that's generated.
Okay, great job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Richard, do we have any backup blowers that we have on the shelf? If we have a meltdown on one of these blowers, that we could do a quick switch and stay online?
Yes, we do. We have offline cells that have blowers in those that we could grab out and make a quick change. And we keep a stock of rebuild kits on the shelf. And right now I have one brand new Tut Hill sitting on the ground, and we have budgeted to purchase another Roots to have sitting and ready to go. So the Roots are readily available out of Reno on the shelf. So we are poised and ready to go if the situation arose.
Thank you very much. Good job there, Richard.
Thank
Any
you.
closing comments for Richard on the maintenance? We're ready to move on. Where's Bob?
All right. Good morning, everybody. The IT department has been working remotely since the fourth week of March. In that time, we've been assisting all of the other departments in their IT needs for remote workstations and also all of their teleconferencing needs. The IT department is coming into the plant when absolutely necessary now for arrival and configuration of new computers and automation equipment. Things are still need to be replaced and configured. The first week of March, we assisted IT and operations. I'm sorry, I think that was in April. IT and operations in the installation and programming of a new variable frequency drive for our dewatering centrifuge. I think everybody's mentioned that. We've started work on our migration of the operations logging database to our plant information system, and we're continuing to support everybody at TTSA with these during these challenging times here. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Bob? Go ahead, Blake.
Bob, I saw that you guys had started a recruitment, which you've put on hold for a IT specialist. Just curious whether before all this happened, did you get a good set of candidates?
We had about 10 people apply, and we were actively going through those through the applicants, and we needled it down to about 4 or so.
Okay, so you did see that you were getting qualified folks.
Yeah. So I'd say it's like 30 to 40% of the people. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Bob?
No, you guys are doing a good job.
All right, what about you, Rochelle? Thank you for all your help getting me into the computer age. I'm just ecstatic that things are going as well as they are with this meeting. You know, we did one of these with Squaw Valley, and it didn't run near as smoothly as what we got going on here. So thank you very much for putting this all together for at least me over here in sunny, beautiful Dunedin, Florida.
Well, you are very welcome. Nothing else I did for the last 2 months matters because I helped Dale be able to join us on our go-to meeting. Right. And you're doing a great job. So thank you for everybody and your patience. We did some test runs for this over the last week or so. Other than that, our accounting, or actually the entire admin department, since the end of March has been working on a COVID mitigation schedule, rotating one person in the office every day. So all of our staff, including myself, are capable to work from home for ordering supplies, for billing customers, for processing payroll, everything you can think of that our department is responsible for. The girls have, or our ladies have accomplished that. And so I would like to, you know, extend a thank you to them for making that all happen. It's definitely a challenge to try something new, and I was, you know, proud that they were able to do so and make it work. And we still have financial statements to provided to you, and all of that being done is an accomplishment in itself. Other than that, we had our, you know, all general plant business, and our for the month of March, we also had our core values training that we are going to continue virtually tomorrow. That is arranged by Vicky and upper management. So without continuous rambling, are there any questions from the board on anything that for the admin department?
Wilkins.
No questions. I had a couple of suggestions in case we continue to do these virtual meetings, but I was going to bring them up on the director's comments.
Okay.
Okay, Lewis.
Yeah, one of the for the next meetings, you know, I think like what Blake was talking about earlier, if we can have, you know, I have Vicky. Well, I used to have Vicky on, but I have LaRue, Dick, and Richard on. I'd sort of like to have those guys be, you know, I don't need to look at them. I'd rather look at the other directors. Sorry, guys. End of comment.
Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, and this applies really to Rochelle as well as the entire staff. Just, I know how disruptive and how fast this whole COVID thing came down, and, you know, what a challenge it is for us individually, let alone trying to run an organization and keep it moving forward and meeting our, you know, critical mission, the essential service we provide to our community. And so to all of the staff at TTSA, you know, good job and making that transition and you know, ideally not only, you know, meeting our essential mission, but keeping everybody healthy as well. So good job.
Thanks, thanks, Blake. Johnny?
Yeah, I agree. Our people are all doing a great job considering the circumstances.
Okay, I got a question, Rochelle, LaRue, and anybody that wants to chime in. You know, this has been a one-time situation here where we're doing this on video cam and so on. Is there any chance that we could have the May meeting where we all assemble in the boardroom, keep our distance, and be able to start getting our board meetings into a somewhat normal format?
I can answer that one, Dale. To accommodate a meeting in the boardroom, I think because of the space limitations, all we could really accommodate would be the board of directors. I would ask if that was to proceed, we would have the department managers teleconference in. Likewise with legal counsel. That'll give you the opportunity to engage with one another and maintain the distances. But I don't think we could accommodate all the managers, staff, and board of directors under the current conditions.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, LaRue, is we would teleconference the managers and the staff, and the board could meet in the boardroom with their space restrictions?
Yes, if the desire was to have all the board of directors attend physically, I believe that's all that room could handle. So if that was the direction, I would ask everybody, like I said, to telecommute in or teleconference in other than the board of directors.
Okay, so as far as for the board of directors, this is something that if anyone has any problem with the 5 of us meeting in the boardroom at the next board date, if anybody has any problems with that, I'd like to hear it, because I agree with Blake that to sit back and be able to see body language and be able to communicate somewhat on a one-on-one basis gives us a little better format and a little better meeting results. Does anybody have any comment?
Yes, John. I think that we have to get a little closer because there's still some flight restrictions and stuff. So I think we probably should wait probably close to the 1st of May to figure out if we can do that.
Yeah, well, we'll have plenty of time to make that decision as the restrictions start to ease. I know down here in Florida, they're starting to ease some of the restrictions on social gatherings and so on. But I'm hoping that by the 3rd week of May that we can all be able, at least the directors, be able to assemble and be able to conduct business somewhat as usual. Blake, any comment?
Dale, as much as I would like to get us back to normal, I think we just got to play this thing by ear and see where we're at as we get closer to the board meeting. If we're in the same position we are today, I would counsel against doing it the way you're saying. I think that, hopefully this technology we're using, we can get the board members, ideally everybody who's attending this meeting, on a single screen, or at least one that you can slide through. That should be something we should be able to work through. But let's cross our fingers and hope that, this thing moves in the right direction, and by May we can actually be all together. But again, if it was the same, we're in the same place we are today next month, I'm gonna counsel against having a board meeting where we're all in attendance together. But
yes,
we just got to play it by ear.
That's right, and I agree with you, Blake. I'm very satisfied actually with the way we've conducted business today and how this meeting has run so smoothly. I would not have a problem with doing a video conference for the month of May meeting. But let's just hope that the restrictions have eased to the point where we can assemble as a group and take care of business. So let's finish up with LaRue and the manager's report. Go ahead, LaRue.
Thank you, Dale. First, as you know, under the COVID-19 scenario, it's been very challenging for us here. I wanted to send appreciative gratitude to our staff for working under these conditions. We've had to telecommute more. We've had to still maintain business, meet W discharge requirements. So I just want them and you guys to know that they've done a great job. They've had to step up to the plate, and they've done so. I won't go over the other points that everybody has discussed regarding the news and some of the other points here. I will briefly touch on the organizational assessment. I do have a draft of that, a very rough draft of that, Lane, and I will be reviewing that, and there will be further discussions with the department managers as that time approaches. The department managers were part of the interview process, so they were provided the opportunity to provide input, likewise with all other staff. I wanted to let you know that with the COVID-19, the agency has taken some measures, as you already know. We have closed our facilities down to the public with minor exceptions, which would be for deliveries and for water samples, should anybody need to take those. We have communicated more so with staff through email and postings on the website, so they don't have to come in and to get this information. It's more readily available through them there. Just to give a general rundown of how we're staffed right now, anybody that has the ability to telecommute, work from home, are doing so. We are letting them use their computer at home if they'd like to. We provided them with a laptop and give them the opportunity to take home agency desktops if needed. Just to run down each department real briefly, all admin staff have the ability to work from home. The engineering department has the ability to work from home. The maintenance department, we have put them essentially on 2 shifts. We have split the crews in half, and they're on a current schedule roughly of 2 on, 2 off. The manager is coming in every day, and the warehouse is coming in every day. When it comes to the operations, the department manager is coming every day. The rotating shift operators, the ones on shift, they are coming in. There are typical occurrences where there's 3 to a shift. So during that time, we allow the third person to stay home. This is an effort to minimize the contact. Because there's only 2 on those rotating shifts, they have the ability to isolate and separate themselves. So they're coming in essentially on a 90-10 schedule, if I could use that. The daytime operators, we put them on a 50 on, 50 off shift, 3 days on, 3 days off, to ensure that they're having separation, and should any of those fall sick, we have the ability to fill in and continue to operate the plant as needed. Laboratory on an 80-20 schedule, which is essentially 4 out of their 5 days. The IT department, like Bob had said, we're working remotely from home. So I think we're being consistent with what other agencies are doing. I think we're doing our best to maintain the separations. I know when I've come in, I've seen staff take efforts to ensure that they're maintaining those distances. So to summarize, because I've had some inquiries on how much are we really paying or how many standby staff are we having at home. When you break it on a daily basis, where we essentially have 77% of all hours being performed at the facility. There's only 23 hours that are attributed to standby time. So I just wanted to give you guys some background information on that, if there's any question to it. We're continuing monitoring the COVID-19. We have morning meetings with all the departments, as we typically do. It's all done through teleconferencing. We're more in a lot of teleconferences with CSRMA, a lot of the local counties here. So we're diligently monitoring it. As this thing comes back and as things return to normal, we'll start to move into that as well. So other than that, I have nothing else to report, and I can take any questions you might have.
I got a question. You know, on operational staff out at the plant, that when there's more than a couple people, are you providing masks so they can be protective?
We do have PPE regulations. We have sent out information on how to do masks. We have limited N95 masks, so we've issued 2 per staff. Along with those masks, we provided directions to them to disinfect and to maintain them. It wasn't a directive from the state of California, so we made it a recommendation. So to answer your question, issued them masks and alternatives for them to use their own if they'd like to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for LaRue?
Just a comment.
And go ahead, was it Dan?
Yeah, yep. So yeah, thanks for the update, LaRue. As it relates to the operations staff so thanks for the stats on how much time people are of the time that they're being paid for, how many of those hours or percentage of those hours are at the plant versus being on standby. I think we need to continue to think creatively about how to get that 77% number up to 100%. And I understand there's limitations with the social distancing goals that we're trying to achieve. The flip side of that is I think there is going to be some public concern that's going to start to mount over employees of public agencies being paid to basically to be at home. And I understand, I view this as a time of transition that we're in right now. Hopefully we transition back to a more normal circumstance. If we end up in this mode for multiple months, I think being creative at figuring out how to get the ops staff back so that they're working a full 40-hour week that they're being paid for is appropriate.
Okay, just to clarify, when they're on standby, they are still required to come in if called on. We also provide them safety training, so they're supposed to respond to those as well, and they have been. But point taken, as this time proceeds, if it does linger on much longer, we will look into increasing that percentage from 77 to up to 100%, Dan.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else for LaRue? Anybody? Directors? Blake, anything on the director's comments?
Sorry about that. Thank you. No further comments. I sort of shared mine during Rochelle's staff report, so I won't repeat them.
Okay, go ahead, Johnny.
They're finding out that UV light helps kill the virus. And of course, when the weather warms up, it should dissipate at least, in the air up there. So at least we have that to look forward to.
Lane?
There we go. Okay, I'm just a little concerned about, the public comments, at the meetings. I mean, not hearing a whole lot, and I don't know whether it's difficult for people to, tune in here, but that's a concern. But I just want to say, with the COVID-19 issues at present, I think I want to commend the staff, everybody, for doing an outstanding job in the trying circumstances that we have, keeping our employees as safe as possible in a good working environment that they can still perform their jobs. I think you've done an exemplary job, as the whole staff has, in not having the plant miss a beat. Granted, we're going to have some deferred maintenance going on because everybody's not here at the time, but with the circumstances we have present, great job. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, any closing comments?
Just a suggestion that if we have to continue to do these meetings, that if people use headphones or earbuds, it helps out a lot with the feedback problems that we had on this meeting.
Okay, Blake, any final comments? Okay, just a question for Rochelle. We're about ready to adjourn here and go to closed session. With that being said, I have my closed session access code. When we shut down, I just dial in these numbers like I did this morning, and we'll all reappear.
That is correct.
Do we want to take a short break between?
So I just have a question on that. Do I need to do anything, or can I just stay on this call?
We will have to end this call and start the other. On your closed session documents that you were provided is that other meeting code. If you do not have it, I can email it to you. But let's not share it over this line. But I can email you that login information. We just want to have a clean separation from one meeting to the next to avoid any uninvited callers.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and if we could make it standard practice to send out the email invitations, it makes it easier to log into the meeting.
Sure, we can do that.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Blake.
Yep. Rochelle, if you could please resend that to me, that'd be good. I'm having a hard time finding that packet and with the code on it.
No problem.
I
do that right now.
Dale, if you don't mind, maybe we adjourn for 5 minutes and we can schedule, say, 11:10 to come back to closed session. That'll give everybody time to access their email, give me time to set everything up, because I'll be going into Rochelle's location. If that's acceptable, I recommend we do 11:10, and that way we can all come back on for just the closed session participants. Nothing else.
Okay, 11:10 it is. If there's nothing else to be brought before this, on April the 15th, the year 2020 meeting, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Moved by Lane.
I'll second. John.
Seconded by Johnny. Roll call, please.
Dan Wilkins,
Yes.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Blake Tresson,
Yes.
Lane Lewis,
Yes.
and Director Cox.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn is approved. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.